Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're unpacking a story that perfectly bridges the gap between a chilling urban legend and a really tragic reality. You know, Mumbai is known all over the world as the city of dreams. Millions literally flock there every year hoping to strike it rich. But hidden right there within the glittering skyline of this massive metropolis, there's a residential complex hiding a profoundly terrifying secret. So grab a seat, because we are going to uncover the chilling events surrounding one of India's absolutely most infamous locations.
Okay, let's just dive right into this by starting at the shocking climax. Picture this. How does a 27-year-old woman, someone who simply moved to a new city looking for a little peace and a fresh start, how does she end up jumping from the balcony of an abandoned, locked 8th-floor flat? Like, was she pushed? Did she just fall? Or was she somehow lured into the abyss by something unseen? To really understand the end of this tragedy, we've got to piece together the beginning.
Part 1. Mumbai's Cursed Tower. Let's take a look at the dark reality hiding right behind the city's glamour.
So these super luxurious apartment towers, they were built way back in 1975, and structurally, they're gorgeous, just towering symbols of extreme wealth in Mumbai. But despite their super prestigious location, they actually harbor a completely terrifying history. For decades now, a very specific section of these towers has been considered one of India's most haunted and, honestly, cursed locations. It's literally a place where all the money in the world seemingly cannot buy you safety from, well, whatever resides there.
Moving on to Part 2, Neha's Scary Story. Now, the true horror of what we're talking about today is just how grounded in reality it actually began. Seeking an escape from the really severe depression of a recent divorce, 27-year-old Neha left her family back in Pune and moved to Mumbai. She moved in with her good friend Manvi, taking a spot in the first building on the 3rd floor. But here is the absolute crucial variable that sets the stage for everything else. Manvi was a radio jockey, and she worked the night shift. Because of this totally flipped schedule, Neha was frequently left entirely alone in this dark apartment, night after night. I mean, think about it. Her intended support system was just gone during her most vulnerable hours. It really deepened her psychological isolation and despair in this brand new, completely unfamiliar city.
Which brings us to Part 3, Truth of the 8th Floor, a haunting ritual.
Looking at the timeline here, her terrifying downward spiral actually started during a quiet, seemingly normal 12:30 a.m. cigarette break out on her balcony. Over the following weeks, this late-night habit coincided with a totally shocking physical decline. Neha's body literally began to dry up. Her face reportedly started turning this sickly, pale blue hue. And it all came to a head one night when Manvi tried to take her out to a club just to, cheer her up. But instead of having fun, Neha suffered a violently intense seizure, trembling and completely collapsing to the floor. Manvi literally had to splash water on her face just to snap her out of it.
So what on earth triggered this sudden severe physical and mental breakdown? Well, during those 12:30 a.m. balcony breaks, Neha had started noticing something. She kept seeing a beautiful woman standing perfectly still on the balcony of the 3rd building's 8th floor. And then one night, the woman actually noticed Neha looking back. They locked eyes. Instantly, Neha was overcome by this inexplicable, just crushing sorrow. Her heart felt impossibly heavy, and she just began to cry, like totally uncontrollably. This bizarre, silent staring match across the towers actually became a haunting daily ritual that slowly, night by night, completely drained her life force.
Let's get into Part 4, that last terrifying night. We are now entering a sequence that completely blurs the line between a severe psychological breakdown and pure supernatural horror.
Okay, so after returning from that awful incident at the club, Manvi went to sleep, promising she'd take Neha to a therapist the very next morning. But tragically, that morning would never come. Late at night, Neha gets up. She's seemingly sleepwalking. She wanders out of her apartment, walks all the way down, and stands directly below that dreaded 3rd building, just staring up into the dark at the 8th floor. It's like a moth drawn to a flame. She wanders inside, takes the elevator up, and steps out at the 8th floor flat. Now this place is covered in garbage and just reeks of rot. The door itself is secured with this heavy, imposing padlock. But as Neha just stands there staring at it, the padlock miraculously springs open entirely on its own. No key, just opens.
Once that door swings open, the woman from the balcony actually calls her inside with this smile on her face. Neha steps in, walking straight toward the balcony, but suddenly, bam, the woman vanishes and the front door violently slams and locks shut right behind her. Neha is panicking, pounding on the door to get out. Then she feels a presence. She slowly turns around.
The beautiful woman is right there, but she has completely transformed into this horrifying entity. We're talking a terrifyingly long, totally unnatural smile, weeping eyes, wild messy hair, and literally decaying, rotting skin.
But the horror doesn't even stop with just that one entity. Out of nowhere, the flat fills up with the spirits of so many dead people, and they all look just deeply, deeply depressed. They're radiating a sorrow so incredibly intense that it physically crushes Neha's own spirit just standing there. As she watches, completely frozen in pure terror, this huge crowd of sorrowful souls actually begins to walk toward the balcony, and they start stepping off the edge, one by one. The sheer emotional weight that gets transferred to Neha in that moment is so overwhelming, so utterly devoid of hope, that she feels this terrifying compulsion to just join them. She walks right to the edge and plunges into the dark.
Finally, Part 5, Ghost or Mental Stress, an Unsolved Mystery.
So, the very next morning, Manvi receives this absolutely horrifying call from a local hospital. Neha had jumped from the 8th floor of the 3rd building. Somehow, miraculously, she actually survived that initial fall. When Neha finally regained consciousness later that day, she recounted this entire horrifying supernatural experience right to Manvi. But tragically, later that very same night, Neha succumbed to her injuries and passed away. Manvi was completely shattered. And to make matters even darker, a neighbor in the complex approached Manvi later on and revealed this chilling open secret. Apparently, the 8th floor of the 3rd building is literally known to be haunted. Over the years, numerous people, all of them suffering from severe stress, had gone to that exact same floor to commit suicide.
Now, when we look at this case impartially, we are really left grappling with two totally conflicting realities. On one hand, we've got the paranormal theory, right? An abandoned flat, protected by a padlock that seemingly opened all by itself, inhabited by some demonic entity that literally feeds on the grief of vulnerable people and lures them to their doom. But then, on the other hand, we have the psychological theory. Let's remember, Neha was a deeply traumatized woman going through a really painful divorce. She was isolated in a totally new city, spending her nights entirely alone in the dark. So you have to ask, could that blue skin and those seizures have just been severe medical symptoms? Could the entity and those jumping spirits have been a devastating, incredibly vivid hallucination brought on by a catastrophic psychological break?
It's a tragedy that continues to cast a really long, dark shadow over the Grand Paradi Towers, even today. The mystery of all those who jumped from that 8th floor remains completely unsolved. So I want to leave you all with a final, rather provocative thought. When highly stressed individuals flock to the exact same spot to end their pain, is it because some dark entity is pulling them in? Or does the real horror actually lie in the profound depths of human depression? It really forces us to ponder that blurry line between the ghosts that haunt our buildings and the ghosts that haunt our minds. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and hey, always keep questioning the world around you.